Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for today's Leadership Spotlight. My name is Jianna Covarelli, and I am a nonprofit management fellow with Women's Public Leadership Network. WPLN is a 501c3 nonpartisan nonprofit organization working to educate, organize, and inspire women to seek public office at every level across the U.S. and to be effective leaders in those roles and the roles they are in other places as well. Now, today, I'm so excited to introduce my friend and fellow former TW or Texas Women's University board member, Jill Jester. Jill, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, John, and it's great to see you again.
Absolutely. Always good to see you. Now, before you get started, I just want to say to everyone joining us live today, thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions as we continue our journey, please feel free to throw them in our chat and we'll try and get to them as we kind of wrap up towards the end or as we see them come in. Now, Jill, would you mind giving us a short introduction about yourself?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised here in Denton, Texas. I moved away for about 20 years and have come back here. And as you know, now serve on the Denton City Council. I'm an attorney. I was a non-traditional student going back later in life. And as you know, in between worked in film and television production and also sketch comedy and improvisation for a number of years. So I've had some different careers, and I think they've all come together to shape me into the person I am. And that's the good part about getting older.
That's fantastic. That honestly rolls right into kind of the first thing I wanted to start. Something on this program we like to explore and kind of see is different women's journeys and how they've gotten to how they helped you and how you've gotten to the leadership position you're in today. So I know you just mentioned, and I know previously you worked in freelance television and film. Could you talk about that a little bit and like what ways do you think that helped set you up for the career path or paths you've had today?
Well, I don't know if any of you have been on a film or production set, but it can be pretty intense. And the stakes are really high, and you have hundreds of people there working on a few minutes a day to produce. You've also got big personalities. And I started as a production assistant, did extras casting, and worked my way up to being a script supervisor. But you have to be able to stand your ground and be yelled at, even when it's not your fault, and take it. And I think that experience has helped me in the types of situations I am in now, because sometimes city council can be quite tense. Sometimes you're making an unpopular vote because you believe with the evidence and the information it's the best interest of the city. So being able to stand your ground, I think, in the political arena and having that, having some confidence. I do think having some of those tough times, working long hours, your average day is a minimum of a 12-hour shoot day, and many times was much longer than that. So I thought, well, I can do law school. If I can do film and television on these film sets, I think I can work hard. And that's part of it.
Absolutely. That's amazing. It's so true. I know we've talked about it often, and we'll get to some of it and how that hard work translates into the different roles you've had and how that's inspired you into those. Um, was there kind of a turning point, or at what point did you realize that public service was something that was going to be an element of your career or an aspect in your life?
I I was lucky enough that it was something that was a given in my family. Both my parents and my grandparents and great grandparents all volunteered a lot. Um, so it was definitely something that from a young age I saw my parents do. And my husband actually reminded me just the other day that I've been involved. I was president of youth and government in high school. I was in student congress in college. My career took a few turns, but it's always been something I've been interested in. And before I ran for office, I was also involved in raising money for nonprofits or on their governing boards. So um, volunteering it's rewarding, and it's also, there's something about feeling like you made a positive difference that just kind of makes life worth living. So I think I've always enjoyed it. I didn't know I would run for office, but I always wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. I think.
I think that's such a great way to put it, is the servant-heartedness, and also paying it into something larger than yourself, and making sure it continues going forward. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, similar to that, here at TW, or I almost said TW. Every time I'm with you, it just is exactly where I go. So for those joining us or have joined us recently, Jill and I know each other from when I was an undergraduate student at Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas. So it's just kind of an auto reflex for me to say TW. But here at WPLN, we're working to build a network of support for women leaders, especially those right of the center. Did any women help you on your journey? And if so, were they mentors, or how did they kind of step into a mentoring position?
Well, I think I am so grateful to WPLN for doing this. And I think it is essential and has been a huge part of where I am today. I was a non-traditional law student, and so I was closer in age to my professors and got to be good friends with some of them. And then I was lucky enough to know former state representative Meyer Crownover, who started asking early on when I moved back to town if I was interested in running for office and giving me that confidence. Our now Secretary of State, Jane Nelson, who is a huge supporter of TW, has been friends with my mother for a long time. And so she was someone that I could call. And even when I was considering running, and also encouraged me, both of them, to apply to be a regent at TW. I participated in University of Texas LBJ School's Women Campaign School. And part of that is they do match you with a mentor. And I was very lucky to be matched with Linda Coop, who's a former Dallas City Council representative. And I had a family tragedy, so I kind of dropped toward the end of that. But meeting with her, who had no ulterior motives, telling her what I was interested in, telling her about my past, and having her tell me, "You are so qualified. You are more qualified than half of the people in the Texas legislature. Like, yes, please, you're ready. You don't need to wait anymore." I mean, imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah.
And putting yourself out there feels egotistical, saying I can make a better decision than the person next to me, or am better suited for the role. It just seems anti what I think we're brought up to think of ourselves or present of ourselves in being humble. So I think it's made all the difference. And when I came back to Denton and started practicing law, I found a few women that owned their own law firms, that had associates, that I seemed to have good personalities. Some of them I knew better than others, but I invited them all out for a glass of wine one night. Cut to years later, we're all really good friends, and having people that you can be real with, that you can ask questions that are very private or personal, and also being able to vent with other people, I think is essential. And I think that's kind of one of the themes, is that you can't do this alone. And these are the people that are going to show up for you later. So we try to do the same. We bring in interns to the law firm from TW and other places, but you have to ask sometimes. But most people, I think, are willing to say yes and give some of their time. And I think it can really help people get where they want to be.
That's fantastic. I love that. You touched on a lot of different notes, but all very, very good notes of how mentorship and those who came before is still pouring into those rising and will eventually even rise, starting with younger generations, including interns. It's a wonderful round, as I said, quite often, full circle moment. Our leadership. That's awesome. Well, you touched it a little bit, and now I've touched it multiple times. You have held both an appointed and an elected position, appointed on the Texas Women's University Board of Regents, and then also most recently, of course, you're at large, place 6 on the Denton City Council. Could you walk us through like the differences between the appointed position you've held or positions on boards, and then also your elected office? And a quick little addition to that, why did you choose to serve on the boards and positions you have?
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of feel free to guide me if I'm going off course, but sometimes I've joined organizations because I'm interested. Sometimes it's because the need is there and I'm asked to serve.
Mhm.
One thing I have had people come to me and ask about, how do I get on this board or that board? That's something that they want to attain. And what I would say is, find where the need is. It's not just about what you want, but if there's an organization that you're really interested in, talk to them and find out. Maybe there's part of your skill set that they're missing or that they don't have time for, and offer yourself in that way. Um, for example, I was chair of the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. I think I was the ninth woman in 110 years to be the chair. But I started out volunteering on the local government relations committee. And then after a few years was chair of the local government relations committee under a vice chair, and then continued to volunteer where I could. I wasn't with one of the big companies or big donors, but I participated in looking at the bylaws and doing things that I could do for them, and eventually then was asked to be on the board of directors. And shortly, probably because of my love of parliamentary procedure and all nerdy things government, was asked to be in line to be the chair. So whether it's raising money for health services in North Texas, or it was my interest that led me to the Economic Development Partnership Board for the city of Denton. But when I was chair of the Chief of Police Advisory Board for the city of Denton, I was its first chair, and that was something that I was asked to do. I was called to do. And so sometimes it's not necessarily what's on your radar. I certainly didn't have a background in criminal justice or policing, but I think because of other skill sets you're asked to, and that can be very rewarding as well. I was approached about participating on a board of regents, and I was looking around at what was possible, and I met with Chancellor Phaeton, Corrine Phaeton at TWU, and she and her husband and my husband and I had dinner, and she really sold me on the mission about what a difference TWU can make in predominantly women's lives, and how it can have a ripple effect to other generations, whether it be students' parents that go back to school, or their children, or their brothers and sisters. And we talked about what's going on in other countries and women's rights in Afghanistan and in some other places, and how we can feel helpless here. And she talked about how the ripple effect of empowering women by educating women here, and what a difference in their lives and earning capability and leadership opportunities it makes. I really believed in the mission, and that is why I joined the Board of Regents. I wasn't an alum, but I was absolutely sold on the mission, that if I could just contribute a little bit, I could feel like I have put some good out in the world. And that is a very different experience than running for office.
Mhm.
In a governor appointed position, which you've been in a governor appointed position, there are interviews certainly, and there's lots of paperwork.
Yeah.
But running for office is very different. I
Yeah.
mean, we have close to 20 different forums that you prepare for from different groups. Lots of questionnaires from all different kinds of interest groups and organizations, and a lot more input. I mean, when I was on the Board of Regents, I never got an email saying, I pay your salary and you should do this. So it's a lot more scrutiny, interest, um, and a lot more time.
Mhm.
So that is a big change, but at the same time, that's democracy.
Yeah.
And I really believe in democracy, and it takes you and me and everyone at some point in time raising their hand when they can, and serving on a city board or commission, or voting,
Mhm.
or making a few calls or sending a few text messages on behalf of a candidate you believe in. It doesn't work unless we all try to do a little, and we have different timing of when maybe we're overloaded with family and school or work. So it's not all the time that I think the expectation is there, but unless we all do something, we're left with who else raises their hand. And they may have their own agenda and not really be looking out for the greater good. So that was probably a longer answer than you anticipated, but it's very different. It's a lot more expensive, a lot more time, but I get a lot more thanks. Just from random people, text messages. So I know both have been appreciated.
Absolutely. A season and a reason for everything.
I've never heard that, but I like it. A season and a reason.
You said something else. Find the need. Find where the need is.
Yeah.
I really, really like that. And I think that because it doesn't need to be super large or even flashy or something, but as long as like you find something where like your passion is meeting the need, and whatever size that need is, it varies. But I think that honestly speaks to a lot of people. I know spoke to me in that moment. So that's a really great line. I know it's something I'll walk away with after this. That's so true. And also, you're so correct. There's many ways to get involved, and the shift between the different places we can serve in public service in different ways. I loved how you separated that difference. And whole greeting, one of the earliest things I've ever done in the elected side, and it is everything. It takes dedication, it takes your time, but that's where the need was, and that also it's where I aligned. So it's a great thing.
And I felt that way. If there was someone else, I felt like, and even thinking about running for office again, if someone I think is going to do a better job than me steps up, I'm happy to support them. And I can concentrate on my, law practice and my family. But if I'm called to, then I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. Love that. Well, you kind of mentioned this a bit, so I want to explore it a little more. Your position requires a lot of different skills to be successful and carry out good work. And what are those skills that you think are non-negotiables for elected individuals specifically, and those in that leadership position?
Well, I think there are a lot, and different people have different strengths, which is also kind of the fun part of being a part of a group or a council or a board. I would say I think that my early years in debate have been more helpful than even anticipated, and I think is something that most people should try to do, which is be able to argue both sides of an issue, because it really makes you understand that, and understanding wherever you are on the side of the fence of an issue, being able to put yourself into the shoes of the person on the other side and why they disagree with you, I think is really helpful to help you make good decisions, because you might be swayed once you really look at the other side of an issue, or you talk to someone who's on the other side of the issue. And I think that that's a good thing. We should continue to collect information and opinion to make a good decision, and should be able to change our minds if given persuasive arguments or evidence. And I also think that that helps you communicate better. And I would say that's one of the non-negotiable abilities, is to be able to communicate. You're not going to gather support and votes, and you're not going to have people sharing with you their opinions, which is necessary to be a good elected official, if you're not able to communicate with them. If people don't feel that you are hearing them, that you are taking in what they're saying and just waiting to talk right back to them, that you're able to listen, but also are able to articulate why you're voting the way you are. And that was something that I was told early on, and I tried to do, is when I vote contrary to maybe popular opinion or the majority of my council members, I do take a minute to say, I just want to explain why I'm voting the way I'm voting, so that it's not something that, I got a text message and someone told me to do something. It's because this is what I've read, or this is what I understand and take from the budget, or what have you. What am I basing my vote on? And that it's that I do take each vote very seriously, especially if it's going to be something that's controversial. I really spend a lot of time trying to make sure it's the right thing. or the best decision I can make with the information I have. So I would say those two things, if I had to, are two of the most important, but there are many abilities and skills that help different people
Yeah,
communicate in different ways and be successful in elected office. There's no one right way.
that's fantastic. I know Korean has also talked about this, but a lot of what I was hearing is active listening, making people truly feel heard, seen, that you are present as they're speaking or you're gathering information in that way. But then also then communication, being able to relay that, vocalize it to broader audiences, different audiences is key, very much so. Something I might add that I was picking up in the way you were explaining it is due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
Doing your due diligence to not only your voting but also to your constituents, to the people in both the listening and the communication aspect, to explain and to relate with them as well. I think that's wonderful. That's the three notes I was picking up that you were saying.
Well, my hope is that we can disagree,
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully they can respect my decision when they do hear about the due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the same with someone that voted on the opposite side. I don't hate you or dislike you because of your vote, as long as it's thoughtful and you're doing what you believe is in the best interest of the community.
Yes.
And not for an ulterior motive or just for popularity or something like that. So it matters to me. So I have to assume there are some people out there it also matters to. And I want to say, as a talkative person, I've really had to learn active listening. And it was something my father taught me, that silence is okay. You don't have to fill the silence. So sometimes when I'm asking someone a question and they'll answer immediately, I want to fill that space.
Mm-hmm.
But that's unnecessary, and give some people the time to formulate what they want to say, and you'll get a lot better information. So I just want to say that's something I've had to work on, and hopefully I'm continuing to get better at.
Always something in areas we can grow in. That's great. The power of silence. Oh, I like that. Let's see. I'm curious what you think or you've experienced and have identified challenges specifically for women or right of center women as they're seeking roles in leadership, whether they are appointed or elected, but especially in today's environment, or things you have witnessed. Do you think, and I'll rephrase, but what challenges do you think specifically are existing or women are engaging with the most as they seek these positions of leadership?
Well, I think they're varied and different for different people, but there are people probably on both sides, but it seems more on the right sometimes, that don't believe women should be in leadership, or have certain expectations of how we are to look and act and speak, that is inconsistent with someone running for office.
Yeah.
I'll share a story. I at one point early in my career had a male attorney write a brief, and in the brief he said, "Lady lawyer Jill Jester did this, or said this." And I don't think he meant it as a compliment, pointing out that Jill Jester was not just a lawyer, a lady lawyer. So that does happen. And I will say, sometimes I believe there are some men that I've encountered that don't realize they're not allowing women to speak or talking over them. And so I've had to speak up, and then they realize what they've been doing, because not everyone waits their turn, and that's just life. And so you need to know that. And I think my improvisation background really helped that too. When I started classes at Improv Olympic, the very first week, Matt Besser, who was in Upright Citizens Brigade, said, "Every week I'm going to I'm going to pick on someone, and I'm going to start with, at the time, Jill Jester. And I was like, oh my gosh, here I was from Denton, Texas, not knowing anything, just showing up for this class. And he said, I can tell that you are joining a scene, but then once you're done, I can see you have other ideas in your head, but you're waiting for other people to take a turn. You're not wanting to, hog the stage. And what he said was, if you've got something, you go. You don't wait on other people. You have to be able to, if you've got a good idea, you step out. You don't wait for everyone else to come up with something. That's not how it works. And so that experience of working with mostly men in comedy also, I think, helped my confidence and confidence in speaking up, not being rude. Hopefully, you never want to be rude, but not being afraid to speak up. So I would say also the expectations of what women are supposed to take care of when it comes to family members, extended family members, the household, as well as a job and elected office. And so I think that can be a barrier as well. So having partners, whether it's at work or at home or in your family, can make all the difference in the ability to have this extracurricular activity, which is elected office. Again, it takes a village.
Absolutely. That's great advice and information. To kind of keep the ball rolling on that, for those who are looking to add public leadership to their professional lives or portfolio, what factors do you think they ought to consider first?
Well, I think they need to know what they're signing up for. I had someone come in and interview for a staff position at my law firm who was running for council. And I didn't know that at the time, but she said she was running for council. And I said, well, you know that there are meetings during the workday, and that this position you would need to be here, other than a lunch break, 8 to 5. And she had no idea that, of what the time constraints were of council. So I would say first, it's very important to understand what the commitment is. And so I would say talk to other people that have held those positions or are in those positions or know people that have those positions to find out what the expectations are and what you're going to be able to do. And secondly, also resources. Either if you have resources or if not, that you have the ability and the wherewithal to ask for other people to share resources with you. So those are the two things that you have to be prepared to give, and you need to make sure that you're ready for that. And there's lots of ways to get ready, but that doesn't mean you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be president of the United States. That means you wake up and say, okay, what are the steps I would need to take to be in a position to one day be president of the United States?
Absolutely. Expectations and resources. That's great. Well, I have a couple more questions here as we wind down. But I do want to say thank you so much again for joining us. And we'll be looking, if there's any questions in the chat, we'll look over there here shortly. As you're looking forward and into your next phase of your leadership journey, what do you see for yourself, or what are you hoping to gain expertise or experience in?
Well, I would say liking to continue to learn is essential, because being on council, I had no idea we had a strategic aquatic plan. I had not studied, transportation or parks or, so many different areas that make up our city services. So I've just completed my first year on council. Even though I'm not new to public service, I'm new to council. So I continue to try to educate myself and not only read all the backup material, but also talk to people so that I can do the best job I can. I'm excited. There's a North Texas Council of Governments that involves like 9 or more counties, and they have the Regional Transportation Council, which helps decide where some state and federal funds go for transportation. And my name is being put forward from the nominating committee to be an officer. So I know I'm probably transportation is going to be what I'm drinking from the fire hose on. So that and economic development are the two things I think are vital to my city and for people to be able to live, work, and play here. So those are some of the things that I had not had experience before in youth and government or student Congress. I understand Robert's Rules of Order and dealing with personalities different than mine, but there's a lot of information out there that I need to know in order to do the best job I can. So that's the sexy topics I'll be learning about and can't wait to talk more about.
That's fantastic. As you say, just continuing your due diligence for your constituents. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, my final question here for you. If you could give one piece of advice generally into those listening and joining us today and those who will watch in the future to women, but also all looking to put themselves out there and become leaders, what would that piece of advice be?
You know, it's easy to say, it's hard to do, but in order to be a leader, you have to do brave things and things you're not sure you can do. I mean, I found that I'm doing some strength training and there are some exercises that I start and I think I very well may just fall on my butt. I don't know if I have the strength to lift what they're asking me to or what have you, but then you do and you're able to accomplish it. So you're able to do things that you may not think you can, but you don't know unless you try. I would say that, and then also not being afraid to work from the ground up. Again, I think that way you'll also do the best job versus just raising your hand and saying, I want to be, president or chair. But being willing to spend a year or two as a member and really learning again what is your skill set that you can contribute, and that's kind of another thing that I've thought of. We can't change everything about our strengths and weaknesses, but we can play to our strengths. And so what I've also tried to do is play to my strengths in different organizations and then hand over to someone else who maybe has different strengths so they can take the organization further in another area. Find what it is that you can do that really pushes the organization forward and try to concentrate on those things. But also don't be shy about asking for help and asking for honest feedback. We have to be able to take some knocks, some ego hits to be the best person and the best candidate we can be. And you don't do that without giving a speech in front of some of your friends and having them tell you where you sounded like you make sense and other times that, they wandered off. Maybe I can tend to get too technical sometimes when I talk about legal issues. So sometimes when I'm talking to a general audience, I have to remember that. So we all have a lot to learn and we continue to learn. And I think as long as you think of it that way, it's kind of cool.
That's awesome. That's some great advice. I love that, Jill. Thank you.
Jianna, I want to say how proud I am of you that you served on the Board of Regents, that you gave your opinion, that you represented the other students so well.
Thank you.
And really became friends with the other men and women on the Board of Regents, which come from all over the state in all different kinds of professions and backgrounds and political backgrounds. And to see you now where you are in DC and it's really exciting to see you spread your wings and fly. And I can't wait to see what's next and look forward to getting to watch from the bleachers.
Oh, thank you so much, Jill. That was so sweet of you. I really, really loved my time on the board, as you know, and it was my joy to serve my students well, but also get to know the fellow board members that continually are making TW a better place and continue to do so. Thank you so much. I can't wait for the future either for both of us. Well, this has been a wonderful and very insightful chat, and I thank you again so much for joining us today, and sharing your journey just a little bit more. Honestly, I thought I knew so much about you, and I still learned many things today. So that is always such fun and conversations with you. We have a lot going on here at WPLN right now, including our new podcast, Tips from the Trail, and as well as our annual summit taking place next week in Orlando, Florida. And I hope you will come out and join us, and I'll see y'all there. Now, we will see you on the next Leadership Spotlight. And thank you, everyone, for joining in today. And of course, as always, follow us on our social media platforms at WPLN, including the N Network, WPL Network, and contact us at the email below. Thanks so much for joining us.
Right. It was a pleasure.